Mr. Moore is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, financial fraud is touching every corner of our society, and no demographic is immune. This isn't a Republican issue, a Democratic issue. This is an issue that impacts everyone, you know, from sophisticated AI-driven scams to check washing, you name it. Criminals are stealing billions from seniors, veterans, and working families, really anybody. These crimes, I know of stories where these crimes have drained retirement accounts, wiped out savings, and really, if not put in check, in some ways erode our financial system. So, Ms. Griffin, what I would just ask you is, from your experience, who would you say, who is most at risk of fraud today? Seniors, young people, small business? And then are you seeing any particular types of scams being targeted at any of these groups?
Yeah, no, it's such an important question because really interestingly, in the survey data that we've been analyzing, there are no discernible demographic differences among the victims. It's perhaps one of the only social problems we have in America with that characteristic. Young and old, urban and rural, different geographies, different races, different incomes, everyone is at equal risk of being impacted by this issue. I would say the only other discernible difference is that older Americans lose more money. And I think that's largely a result of them having had more time in their lives to accumulate more money to steal.
You know, the scope of this problem is really staggering. In 2024 alone, the FTC reported that 2.6 million consumers reported being victims of fraud, with a combined loss of a staggering $12.5 billion. And as our witnesses have testified before, we expect the true monetary impact of fraud to be much higher because of non-reporting, et cetera. But Mr. Brenda, community banks and credit unions, I know, are devoting enormous resources in fighting fraud, but the threat is larger than any single industry can possibly tackle on its own. Can you describe the scale of fraud that your members are seeing?
Thank you for the question. It's really hard to describe because, as you said, we don't have accurate numbers. We've got numbers that are all over the place. The one thing we can look at is the trend lines. So both the FBI claimed a 33% increase in fraud from 23 to 24. FTC showed a 25% increase from 23 to 24. So fraud is going up 25 to 30% every year in terms of what we're seeing. From our members' perspective, we spend an inordinate amount of time on check fraud. And we've seen the SARs being reported on check fraud have tripled, frankly, in the past 4 or 5 years. And that number is not going down. And then we continue to see the rise of scams trying to convince consumers to send money out, and that is simply going to continue to increase.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. How have the banking regulators been engaged in helping financial institutions fight scams and fraud? And as a secondary, have there been any regulatory or interagency fragmentation that's made it harder to respond?
The regulators haven't, I'll focus on the scam issue. The regulators haven't really focused on the scam issue because it is, I think it is more focused on the front end thing, which is a consumer being induced to commit some type of act. So what we would like to see them focus on is ways that we can better share information. We really want to focus on preventing the fraud from happening in the first place, and that requires sharing information they receive from suspicious activity reports, sharing information from law enforcement, and allowing banks and other financial institutions to share information about bad accounts being used in real time so that those accounts can't be used to commit fraud.
With respect to this, I mean, would you say that the scams are just, I mean, this is probably a rhetorical question, they're becoming more sophisticated, though, these scams are, right?
They are. They're using the data that they've stolen. They're using AI to fabricate documents. They're using AI to deepfake voices. And they're using AI to commit fraud at scale. It's no longer a simple thing to spot a phishing email. It's very challenging.
Wait, you mentioned AI. That brings me to Mr. Bednowitz. I'll ask you a question. We know AI is a double-edged sword. Criminals are using it, of course, to create more convincing scams, but my understanding is companies are also deploying it to detect fraud. How effective is AI being used in protecting consumers today, and what gaps still remain?
Yeah, thank you for the question. AI is definitely a double-edged sword, and we utilize it in our tools to scan millions of data points to detect fraud in real time, to detect deepfakes, prevent scams from ever reaching consumers via their email, phone, or text. And we're not alone. The private sector is innovating very heavily with AI to combat these these scams and these fraudsters. And the gaps that I keep coming back to is just awareness on the side of consumers to be able to adopt these types of protections and to also be aware to breathe and stop to know that they need to check, that they shouldn't just respond to any email, phone, or text, that they have to be vigilant. They unfortunately can't trust their communications today.
Right, and I know I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. I just will point out now criminals can actually use artificial intelligence to mimic a loved one's voice. They can, someone gets a call and they think they're actually getting a call from a family member or whatnot saying that they need this or need that. So it is scary how it is out there, and so appreciate the effort that the industry is making on this. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.